In this video, we will discuss adding and subtracting fractions. But before we get started, let's remind ourselves of what a fraction is. Here I have two circles, which can be considered a whole. A fraction is a part of a whole. So I can take this circle and divide it into two parts, and I can take this circle and divide it into even more parts, and now I've created a fraction with these two whole circles. Now this fraction here, if I am just concerned with one part of this fraction, then that is two separate parts, and I write my fraction as 1 over 2, or 1/2. The 1 represents a part, the 2 represents the whole. Over here, if I'm just concerned with one part, it would be 1 over 4, or 1/4. But because I have several parts here, I can write several fractions. So I can also write 3 over 4, or 3/4. Now, the top of our fraction, or the part, is referred to as the numerator. And the bottom part of our fraction, which is the whole, is called the denominator. So let's look at some fractions and talk about the addition and the subtraction. Before I can add or subtract a fraction, I must have what is called a common denominator. So as we just established, the denominator is the bottom part of our fraction. Okay? So let's look at our first example. We have 2/6, and to that we're going to add 3/6. As you can see, both of these fractions have a denominator of 6. So they already have a common denominator. So once you have established that your denominator is the same, your answer will have the same denominator. So it would also have a denominator of 6. And all you need to do from there is add your numerators. So 2 plus 3 will give us 5. So 2/6 plus 3/6 will equal 5/6. The same thing applies with the subtraction. So if I have 4/9 and I subtract 2/9, I can see that my denominator is the same. Both of them have a denominator of 9. So in my answer, I will also have a denominator of 9. And all that I need to do is subtract my numerators. So 4 minus 2 gives me 2. So 4/9 minus 2/9 gives us 2/9. Now, there will come times when your denominator is not the same. For example, if I'm adding 1/2 to 1/3, I can clearly see that this has a denominator of 2 and this has a denominator of 3. So the denominators are not the same. So when you do not have the same denominator, what you have to do is find what we call, again, the least common denominator. And this involves considering your least common multiple. So a multiple that both 2 and 3 share, and it must be the smallest number that they both share. So when you think about the multiples of 2 and 3, the least common multiple would be the number 6. So that means I need to change each of these fractions so that they have a denominator of 6. What I must consider is how the denominator goes from 2 to 6 through multiplication. Well, 2 times 3 gives me 6. So because I have to multiply the denominator to 3, I must also multiply the numerator to 3. So 1 times 3 is 3. Here, 3 goes to 6 by multiplying 2, so I must also multiply the numerator times 2. So 1 times 2 is 2. So here I have 3, 6 plus 2, 6, and my answer. Now I have the same denominator. Keep that denominator. Add my numerators, 3 plus 2, 5. So 5, 6. Let's look at one more example. This time we'll do some subtraction to show you that the same rules apply. So 7/8 minus 2/4. Notice they clearly have different denominators. This has a denominator of 8 and this has a denominator of 4. So I must find the least common denominator for the two fractions. Well, that least common multiple that these two numbers share would be the number 8. Since this fraction already has a denominator of 8, I do not need to change that fraction. So it will remain as 7/8. But the second fraction must be changed. So in order to go from 4 to 8 with multiplication, I must multiply 4 times 2. And so I must do the same with my denominator. The numerator. So 2 times 2 is 4. So that second fraction becomes 4/8. Once again, you have a denominator that is the same. So your answer will also have a denominator of 8. And all you need to do now is subtract your numerators. So 7 minus 4 is 3. And your final answer here would be 3/8. So let's review what we've done. We established that a fraction is a part of a whole. The part is what we call the numerator, which is the top portion. And the whole is what we call the denominator, which would be the bottom half. Before you can add or subtract your fractions, you must have a common denominator. If your denominators are the same, your answer will also have that same denominator, and all you need to do is add or subtract your numerators. If you have different denominators, you must find the least common denominator by finding the least common multiple. Once you've found that least common multiple, you must change your fractions. And then once the new denominators have been created and they're both the same, you can proceed again with your addition and your subtraction. So that is how you can go about adding and subtracting your fractions.